Hi, everybody. Welcome to Big Apple Hockey. And we have a big show for you because there's only one more playoff series to be covering. And we have got that covered in spades. I, of course, am your host who's finally back in New York, at least for a little bit. I'm going to be going to Pennsylvania next week. Marc Williams, and a man who is taking as much time fighting Hinoxes and Gleox, Mr. John Volkowski.
That game is certainly enjoyable. We have a nice little matchup here for the Stanley Cup Finals, though, so definitely time to talk some hockey.
And a man thinking about possible change at UBS Arena, Mr. Anthony Larocco.
Yeah, more on that in Bar Talk, but Gary Bettman's probably thrilled right now. He's got his Stanley Cup Final, two non-traditional hockey markets battling for the Stanley Cup. He loves to see that. Don't you think twice about that?
Yeah, as opposed to say David Silver. I forgot. Adam Silver. That's what it was. I still think David Stern, who's right now in the NBA going, oh, no, it's Miami versus Denver. Who cares? I mean, right now, Gary Bettman prefers probably to have the non-traditional markets in there.
Well, yeah, because he's been trying to prove that it works in those, non-traditional markets, and this obviously is kind of a little bit of proof to it. But yeah, we're gonna have a team that wins the Stanley Cup for the first time in its history. So
that's what I can't wait for. I can't wait to see a team winning the Stanley Cup, and they've never won it before. And there's no controversy like the Dallas Stars or anybody like that.
Did you know?
Even though, by the way, Brett Hull had the puck, so. Everybody just relax on that one a little bit. You can look for my 60-second game reviews. I'll be doing them after every single game because now there's only 7 games left. Might as well. There's also 9 off days in the middle of all this travel. We're going to get to that more in a second. And you can also read the Pick of Destiny, which is my Stanley Cup Finals article on there. And also it's the A Block, and it's sponsored by SeatGeek. Use the promo code Big Apple Hockey for $20 off. And guys, let's go right into it. The Stanley Cup Finals. We're going to be doing a full preview of that today. It's going to be the Panthers versus the Golden Knights. Filk, I'm going to go to you first. What is your initial impression of this series?
Interesting. It's two teams that have, that don't have a Stanley Cup. One that's been there once. 27 years ago now, and they still haven't won a Stanley Cup final game. They were swept by the Colorado Avalanche, who won last year. So Vegas going back there for their second time also in their history. They also lost. They won one game. So it's interesting to see two different teams that really don't get here a lot. Two different players that are American-born players, which is another thing that Gary Bettman is more than happy about right now, is that two American-born superstars are going at it for the Stanley Cup. So two non-traditional hockey markets, more of a chance to market the game to newer markets, to newer fans. And, that's why I was making that face before, because
I was going on the pun for it because there is definitely you could argue both of these teams are the teams of destiny. And I guess I'll jump in real quick on this because you look at both teams, they both had success. They both got to the conference finals, if not a little bit further, or they won a President's Trophy. And then they took a step back. They regressed. They made a huge move. And now they're in the Stanley Cup Finals right now. The huge splash, of course, Vegas getting their number one center, which they never had. And you know what, Mike? All right. Yeah, I missed the softball one.
Layup talk.
Right. And of course, I've talked about this all the time, and whether or not you guys agree or disagree with me is fine. I will always refer to it as the Brendan Shanahan trade. And if you can make the Brendan Shanahan trade, that's where you're like, we got this team, but we're going to have to give up something in order to get something back that's going to put us over the top. What is it going to be? They went out and got Matthew Tkachuk, who Anthony and I did an 11 a.m. special on last year, and we thought Calgary won that trade running away. You know what? Florida clearly won it now. So, Anthony, what's your impressions on this series?
I mean, two ends of the spectrum, right, fellas? You're talking the Golden Knights, who obviously one of the top teams in the West, not a surprise they're here. And on the other hand, you have the Florida Panthers, who were the lowest ranked playoff team. They were 16 out of 16. And what's totally mind-blowing to me is if the Penguins didn't lose to a horribly bad Chicago Blackhawk team on the third to last day of the season, the Panthers wouldn't even made the playoffs. And now here they are in the Stanley Cup Finals.
It's Philly 2010 all over again.
It just goes to show how anything can happen in this sport. And they always say in hockey, well, really in any sport, but specifically hockey, you just got to get in, and then anything can happen. And the Panthers are proving that. I mean, they knocked off the Bruins. Not only did they knock off the Bruins, but they were down 3-1. So, this team, and we'll get to it later in our predictions when we go over everything. But I don't know about you guys. I have a feeling this team's just like a team of destiny right now, like their Cinderella story, and that they're gonna complete it. They're gonna get all the way to the top. But we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, it's not a series that I would have predicted. I think in the preseason, I think I picked Calgary in the finals against Carolina. Maybe I don't remember the team from the East, but I would have never picked the Golden Knights versus the Florida Panthers just at all. So. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to get going, and hopefully, it's a long series. This is our last hockey meaningful hockey until October. So hopefully it goes 7 games, and it's a thriller. So, but yeah, I never would have predicted it in a million years. So here we are.
I still wouldn't have predicted it. I still kind of can't believe that Florida made it past the Bruins. I knew the Bruins weren't going to make the Stanley Cup Finals the way I said it. Sorry, Boston fans. It's just the way I thought.
They rarely don't.
But
a team like
what?
A team like that steamrolls through the regular season and breaks all these records. It's rare that they go all the way to the end and win the cup. So, yeah, but here we are. Like I said, let's get going.
There's a lot more of a mess on my desk than I thought. But yeah, no, Anthony, and again, but also Linus Ullmark never won a playoff game up until this, and it wasn't exactly the most ideal situation for him to be in. I mean, but then again, you had Alex Lyon starting the playoffs. Like the Panthers are more reminiscent of the 2018 Capitals right now.
Alex Lyon, he got the Panthers in the playoffs. I mean, he started like the end of the regular season. He was like some ridiculous record. Like, and I think he played like the last 7 or 8
I had it. I don't have it now.
He was unbelievable, and he was the guy that started the playoffs for him. So, it's funny how things go. We kind of all writing off Bobrovsky after the regular season he had and everything. But I mean, that guy found his game at the right time. And, goaltending, a guy gets hot. That's all you need sometimes. I mean, who would have thought Adin Hill would lead the Golden Knights the way he's doing? I mean, this is another guy, Cinderella story. Is the clock going to strike midnight on him, and his wheels are going to turn into pumpkins again? I don't know. This is a guy that was traded. I don't know when it was, maybe late summer, like August, or I don't know exactly, but he was an afterthought. The Sharks dealt him to the Golden Knights for a bag of pucks, and now he's the starting goalie in the Stanley Cup Finals. So it's crazy. This series.
We got a lot of talk about Adin Hill in a moment, by the way. So, and Filk, your last thought on the Panthers before we start breaking this down.
I mean,
or even on the series. Go ahead.
Just on the series, it's just so weird how both teams started with goaltenders that are not even their first options. I mean, both teams have gone through major goaltending controversy this year. Bobrovsky, we all thought his career was basically done. Spencer Knight ends up in rehab. And then Alex Lyon, who is a career minor leaguer who we all laughed at, ends up getting them into the playoffs. Then you have Logan Thompson, who was a Rookie of the Year candidate, and he goes out. I mean, they bring in Jonathan Quick, who's pretty much at the end of his career. He doesn't really do anything. Now they're with, Laurent Brossoit comes in. He plays well for them. He's hurt. Now it's Adin Hill's net. I mean, I got to say this right now. This is one of the most weird and really kind of fascinating goaltending matchups I've seen in recent memory, just because the goaltending has been so maligned, but they've outperformed expectations to the nth degree in terms of where these guys were heading into the playoffs. Nobody would have, if you would have said that this goaltending matchup would be the goaltending matchup in the Stanley Cup Finals back in, I don't know, at the beginning of April when the playoffs started, people would have laughed at you. They would have laughed at you because nobody would have thought Sergei Bobrovsky would have come in and just had some stupid Patrick Waugh 93 type run, or Aiden Hill would be the sole survivor of the walking wounded and have come up and risen to met the occasion. So I can't believe that this is the goaltending matchup. But this is going to be, I think this is going to be one of the more fun Stanley Cup Final series we've seen in quite some time.
I think this, and I also think this is going to be a far cry from 2018. I think Vegas is a for real team now. They're better coached with Bruce Cassidy, and for Paul Maurice, I mean, he's looking for his second Stanley Cup Finals win because he only had one when he got with the Panthers in 2003. And I believe it was game one, if I recall correctly. I think they took game one.
You mean lost the Hurricanes in 2002?
Oh, that's what I meant, 2002.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, he only won one game, and it was a Ron Francis overtime winner.
Yeah, that was game one, wasn't it?
It was game one, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how about that? Like, I mean, this just amazing how the more things change, the more they can stay the same. And also just, the thought about it, Vegas used 5 goalies in the regular season. 5. And Aiden Hill is the last man standing. And it's a little bit like a craps table because I forgot what the guy rolling the dice is called. I had the term, but when the roller's done, they just move on to the next guy. And if that guy's hot, they just keep playing him.
Next man up.
All right. We're going to go right now to our X Factor players of the series. And Filk, let's start with you. Who is your X Factor guys that you're looking at?
Well, for Florida, I said Brandon Montour. I just think that you're looking at a player that's going to be logging some serious minutes. He's going to be running their power play. That's the guy that needs to play really good defense against a really solid forward group in Vegas. They need him to be as good, if not better, than what he's been so far in the playoffs, because Vegas can play that same style of game. They're up-tempo. They're in your face. They're going to hit hard. They're going to go after him. They're going to target him. So he needs to rise to the occasion and handle what's coming his way. For Vegas, I said Mark Stone, because I think Mark Stone is going to be the one that's going to go after Matt Tkachuk and try to shut him down and get him off this game. He's a Selke caliber defensive winger, a guy that could also score a point per game. He's one of the better two-way players in all the NHL. So this is going to be Mark Stone's. This is going to be his time. If he has to, if it's now, when is it? Mark Stone really is going to have to step up here, and he's going to have to try to slow down Matt Tkachuk.
Anthony, who do you got for your guys?
For Florida, I went with Carter Verhaeghe. 42 goals in the regular season. What a find for him he's been after really the Maple Leafs, Islanders, and Lightning all gave up on him. But listen, the Vegas, their focus is going to try to shut down the line of Tkachuk, Cousins, and Bennett, which means Carter Verhaeghe is going to have to, keep doing what he's doing. He's got 15 points, I think, in 16 playoff games so far. He has scored big goals. Go back to the Bruins series, he scored a huge one. This guy has turned into quite the sniper, and I think if Vegas, even if they succeed in kind of shutting down Tkachuk, they have to deal with him. And Verhaeghe kind of showed that he's a real sniper in this league this season. So if him and Barkov can kind of get going and cause some trouble, it could be hard for Vegas to really handle with already having to focus on Tkachuk's line. So I think Carter Verhaeghe having a big series could go a long way with the Panthers winning their first Stanley Cup in team history. For Vegas, we just talked about him. I went with Aiden Hill. He's been fantastic so far. No one ever expected this guy to play the way he has been. And I think for Vegas to win the Cup, he's going to have to continue that. Like I said, if the clock strikes midnight on this guy in this series, I think the Panthers are going to win the Cup, because the other viable option is Jonathan Quick, who's not really starting caliber anymore. So Aiden Hill is going to be staring at the end of the rink in a guy in Sergei Bobrovsky, who's at the top of his game, who obviously comes from a much higher pedigree. So if Aiden Hill can outplay Bobrovsky or even beyond his level, Vegas certainly has a good chance of winning this series.
I was all up on him last year, thinking this guy is a clutch player. He's made for the playoffs. Then this year, he deposits 40 goals and was a great regular season player. Carter Verhaeghe is my guy too. I have to go with him. And whenever the Panthers needed a big goal, Verhaeghe has done it. He won the series against the Bruins. This guy has always just come up big for this team. And the other guy for me is Jonathan Marchessault, because the first, I believe, 7 games of the playoffs, he didn't have a goal for the Panthers. Everybody started wondering, what's wrong with Jonathan Marchessault? What's wrong with Jonathan Marchessault? Oh, well, since then, let's see. He had a 2-goal game against Edmonton, a hat trick to close them out, and then he had 4 goals versus the Vegas Golden. For the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Dallas Stars. If he's on a roll, and he's still on a roll, playing on that top line with Jack Eichel, good night, Irene. It's going to be very quick. So that's what I have to say for my 2 X Factor guys, because obviously we know the stars are going to come in, they're going to perform. Oh, that's what stars do. But under the radar guys, Anthony, who is your under the radar guys?
For Vegas, I'm going with Riley Smith. If you look at Vegas' top contributors right now, it's Eichel, Stevenson, William Karlsson, Marchessault. Riley Smith is a guy that has a good shot, and he's capable of putting up points and scoring goals. And if he could really join the party here and start scoring as well, that's going to be a huge boost for Vegas. And also consider this, it really goes for Marchessault too. Remember this wrinkle. Marchessault and Riley Smith, I'm sure they remember how Florida basically gave those 2 away to Vegas way back when in the expansion draft. I mean, you're talking Florida,
to protect Alex
Petrovic. Florida just gave them, Riley Smith in exchange for taking Marchessault in the expansion draft. So I think these 2 guys are going to be motivated to even though it's a long time ago, they're going to be motivated to kind of shove it to Florida and say, yeah, well, who's laughing now? We're winning the Stanley Cup, and you basically just, shunned us aside. So I think there's a little extra step in those 2 steps in this series. And I think, again, Riley Smith, if he has a big series, that's going to go a long way for Vegas. For Florida, this was a tough one, and I went with a sneaky one here. I'm going to say under the radar. Ryan Lomberg, he plays on a checking role for Florida. He gets under the opponent's skin. He plays a hard-nosed game, and he scores occasional big goal or 2. The game against Carolina, he scored a big goal off a pretty tap-in. He plays hard, and I think if this guy goes around, cause chaos, hitting people, making it hard on Eichel and others, I think that's the type of game Florida wants to play. He brings some jam, and I think guys like that, it's the unsung heroes in the Stanley Cup Finals sometimes. You're talking. Remember, Dave Bolin was a guy who came up big for Chicago. Fernando Pisani way back when, in 2006.
Yeah.
The Oilers. Brian Bickle, another guy for Chicago that was a scrapper and had a huge series for Chicago as well. So,
Ranger fans, Doug Lidster. 1994.
Yeah.
These are the type of guys that kind of, step up in this time. And I think, you could look to Lomberg for possibly being one of those guys.
Filk, who are some of your under the radar players?
It's funny because Anthony took one of mine already with Riley Smith. The other one, funny enough, also has 11 points in the playoffs. And he's also second on his team in shorthanded time per game. And it's Sam Reinhart. And this is actually good point right here by Steven. That third line can do damage with their real good transition game. But Reinhart, for me, I'll talk about him first. Reinhart has 7 goals already and 11 points. He's a +1. He plays in all situations. You can put him on your power play. You can put him on your penalty kill. He can score goals. He's a guy that you really want to look out for. And another thing that is not going to be really an on-ice thing, maybe could come into factor on the ice if they're out against each other. But you got to remember, he played with Jack Eichel in Buffalo. So he knows some of Eichel's tendencies and things that he does. So that could help. His intel can help in trying to help shut down Eichel for the Panthers. So any intel that he can give Maurice to game plan against Eichel and that line, that's big for them. Sam Reinhart's a good two-way player, and that's another thing that these two have in common. Riley Smith, another two-way player. And he has, again, 11 points. He only has 2 goals, though. Need more goals from Riley Smith if the Vegas Golden Knights are going to win the Stanley Cup. But they're plus players. They're each second on their team in penalty killing or shorthanded ice time among forwards. And Riley Smith is going to be a guy that, like Anthony said before, I mean, that's going to play in the back of their minds, him and Jonathan Marchessault. So to get sent off to Vegas as an Island of Misfit Toys type thing to protect Alex friggin' Petrovic, who isn't even in the damn league anymore, that's going to be on their minds, and they're going to come out with chips on their shoulders, those two. So I expect Riley Smith to be going balls to the wall, pardon the song reference there, but he's going to go out there and give 150%, because not only just having the stain of losing in the back of their minds still, and that's still somewhat fresh, but getting sent off for nothing to protect a player that ended up not panning out, that's definitely something that they've been looking forward to. So I think Riley Smith is another Swiss Army knife. And if you start getting production from guys like that, who can give you more, who have been okay, but that can give you more, that's the type of effort and production that puts a team over the top in the end. So for me, that's why I think Riley Smith is going to be a guy that you're going to be hearing quite a bit from in this series.
All right. And for my guys, I just need the 23 of you watching right now. First off, everybody, thank you very much. Make sure you're leaving a like and that you're subscribed. But I need everybody to make sure that all your Ranger fans, you're going to be grinding your teeth when I'm going to mention these names. But we're going to start with my under-the-radar guy, 30-goal scorer from last year, who's finally healthy again, and he's looking pretty good, Anthony Duclair. He's matched the 9 points that he had in the regular season in these playoffs, and he's starting to look a little bit like himself. It takes a long time to come back from an Achilles injury. The other one, somewhere David Quinn is fapping right now because Brett Howden is doing everything that is being asked of him. He's got 3 goals, 3 assists in these playoffs, including a game-winning overtime goal that he banked in off of Jake Ottinger. And he's even got a couple of assists. I believe he had an assist on one of Will Carrier's goals on the game in Dallas that I was there for. If you haven't checked that video, check it out because it is a real good video. But it's these guys, he's doing everything that's being asked of him. I think he's even doing the third penalty kill. He's not on the first 2, but it's these 2 guys I'm kind of looking at, and I can imagine one of them just putting home a goal. And I mean, right now the NHL would love it if Anthony Duclair could do it as well, because he's starting to look back and be healthy, and also start picking his speed back up. But we alluded it before, and I think all 3 of us are still focused, single-minded on the same thing, just in a different way. And Filk, let's start with you. What is the key matchup of this series?
If you didn't see the little header that I had up there before,
and we'll put it right up.
Yeah, Tkachuk versus Eichel. That's really the key here. It's 2 American-born superstars on the biggest stage in this sport going at it. I love to see this. I think it's great that Eichel's there. I love the fact that Eichel's there because Buffalo gave him all that crap trying to get out of there, dragged him through the mud, and now he's in Vegas looking to help them win a Stanley Cup. Good for you, Jack. And he's not only that, but he's played extremely well. He's over a point per game. He looks like the dominant elite force that we all knew that he would be when healthy. So good for you, Jack Eichel. But Matthew Tkachuk, what a season this would be to win the Stanley Cup. And you know what? This is one of those instances where it's actually a shame that they don't factor playoff performance into the Hart Trophy voting. Because if Matt Tkachuk were to win a Stanley Cup and they factored that in, I would 150% give him the MVP over Connor McDavid at that point. Because the way that he dragged this team into the playoffs, he dragged them to the Stanley Cup Finals along with Sergei Bobrovsky. Sorry, I'm not trying to discredit Bobrovsky putting up video game numbers, but Matthew Tkachuk is that offense because Sasha Barkov, great two-way player, but he's not giving you the offense that you need so far. He's close, but he needs to be better. So Matthew Tkachuk has just been the man. I would love to see him win it all. And I tell you right now, I'd probably murder a few people to have Matthew Tkachuk on the Rangers. I'm just saying. I probably shouldn't admit that on here, but I probably would.
Well, I mean, the key phrase is probably and would. Now we have your motive. We just don't have the means and the method of how you would do it. And also the corpus delicti. So we're fine with that. Anthony, you have the Matthew Tkachuk matchup, but you have something else.
Yeah, I think Alex Pietrangelo and company are going to have their hands full trying to shut that line down. But for me, that's the matchup. I mentioned Carter Verhaeghe before. Is going to have to really play good. Being that Vegas get put a lot of their efforts into shutting down this top line of Florida. But if Vegas, Pietrangelo specifically, can at least you're not going to completely shut down a trio like this, but if you could at least limit their chances to whereas they're not killing you, you're going to have a chance to win. And I think Vegas, every shift they're out there, they're going to hit them, take every opportunity to make it hard on them, make them think twice when they're going into the corners, turn their head, see what's coming. But they have to be really hard on them because, if this line gets going and they do that often, it's hard to stop that train. So, Pietrangelo and company have their work cut out for him. But, for me, I think this is key because I think whoever wins this matchup is ultimately possibly winning the Stanley Cup.
And that the Vegas owners were salivating when Pietrangelo became available when he was a free agent, and now here he is. And guys, my guy, when you got a guy, he's probably the best forward in the league defensively, not to win a Selke yet, I'm going to say. But Mark Stone I think they're going to match him up against Keith Tkachuk. And
Matthew.
Damn it. I realized it after I said it. Sorry, everybody. I'm old. Anyway,
oh my God.
So let's get a little quick. We got to get a jingle going of oh no, Mark messed up. All right, so all right, so Matthew Tkachuk going up against Mark Stone. This is the the Justin Huberdeau thing all over again because I'm so focused on making sure I have the lead in and getting the graphic up that I forgot the guy's name for a second. And yep. There you go. All right. But no, Mark Stone against Matt Tkachuk. And here's the thing. You guys remember last year? The narrative was Matt Tkachuk doesn't perform in the playoffs. Matt Tkachuk isn't a guy that can win a Stanley Cup. Matt Tkachuk might win the Conn Smythe, even if this team loses. That's how good he's been. He's been the most, probably the most visible forward, I'm going to say, not named Connor McDavid in the playoffs. It is amazing what he's been doing. And 3 game-winning goals in 1 series. And so, yeah, thank God Anthony Lynn isn't in the NHL. But no, it's one of those things I can't help but say that this guy and all of us have the same philosophy. Shut down Matt Tkachuk. That's all we're thinking about right now. That's amazing to me. All right, Filk, finish this sentence for me. The Las Vegas Golden Knights will win the Stanley Cup if
Aiden Hill can outduel Sergei Bobrovsky.
More on that later.
That's the biggest.
That's what I was going to say too. So might as well skip over me. But yeah, I agree there.
See, I now I have to go back to my notes on it in a second. I forgot all about it. I think it's continued to have balance throughout their lineup. They've actually been a little bit more balanced than Florida. I'm gonna still go out on a limb and say their defense has been incredible in the playoffs. The Golden Knights have, and they have 31 points out of their defense. That's the second most of the NHL. We're going to cover that more in a minute as well, but that's because obviously Edmonton, if you touch the puck before McDavid, you got a point. So I think that's going to be a key thing, and their balance, and they got to stop Matt Tkachuk. They got to stop that line. And so far, nobody's been able to stop him. And one of my favorite Matt Tkachuk quotes on this playoff run was when the Panthers were up 3-0 over Toronto, and everybody said, "Oh, the big guys, Matthews and Marner, haven't scored yet." And Matt Tkachuk came back and said, "Neither have I. Who the hell cares?" So, all right, Anthony, going to you on this one. The Florida Panthers will win the Stanley Cup if
I'm going to say if Barkov could start to produce like the 90-point player he was. I think that might be too much to Vegas because now on top of the Tkachuk line, you have Barkov and Verhaeghe really going. At some point, it becomes too much for a Vegas team, especially a guy that they have in net and Aiden Hill that, like I said, you never know when, the pixie dust is going to go away from him. So if Barkov and Verhaeghe are cooking as well, I think that's too much for Vegas.
Filk.
That's what I wanted to say. Thank you for taking my original answer. I'll give you something different. If Florida's defensive depth can handle Vegas's forward depth, and that's going to be the big thing for me. Everybody knows about Ekblad and Pietrangelo. It's after the top guys is what the key matchup is going to be in regard to that. So if Florida, if they can handle that forward unit, because the matchup that they want is Ekblad versus Eichel's line. That's what they want. It's the matchups afterwards that are going to determine this series for Florida.
And for me, I had to kind of look long and hard on this. The easy answer is for Keith. I almost called him Keith Tkachuk again. Matthew Tkachuk and Sergei Bobrovsky to keep playing the way they are. I broke this down to one thing: keep winning board battles. It seems like Florida hasn't lost a board battle since Game 4 against Boston. They just are tenacious on the boards, and they're always coming away with the puck. In the 4 overtime game, I had a debate with a friend of mine, huge Carolina fan. Puck, yeah, he's on here. And I kept on saying, this entire 4 overtime looks like it's dominated by Florida. And I just feel like they got the puck all the time. Clearly, that's not true because the other team is able to put it in the back of the net on them. But it just feels like Florida is just physical and everything. They don't lose board battles whatsoever. And I'm trying to think of another one. I got another reason up there. Paul Maurice has pushed every single button. Keith Tkachuk and Jonathan Huberdeau. Hey, Keith Tkachuk, arguably on the short list.
Huberdeau this time.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. Now I say the right answer and the right name, and he's gone. Guys, I had trouble with my predictions on this. I agonized over this. Anthony, I'm going to start with yours. Who do you got in how many games?
This was tough. I kind of went back and forth for a little bit. But I'm going Florida in 7. If not just for the fact of, like I said, I think they're just a team of destiny right now. I really do. Everything's gone right for them. And I just have that feeling. I have the feeling they're going to finish the job here. They're going to win their first cup in franchise history. But I think it's going to be a close series. I do. I think there's going to be a couple overtime games. Not that this is going out on a limb, which how often we saw it, but I think the margins are going to be kind of razor thin here. But ultimately, I think the Panthers take it in 7.
Filk, who do you got?
Florida in 6. I just think that these guys these two teams play very similar games. You talk about board battles before. Vegas is tenacious on them as well. You should ask the Dallas Stars and their defense about that, especially Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, who coughed over quite a few turnovers in that series because of the hustle of guys like Keegan Colasar, Brett Howden, Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, and so on. So those guys are going to cause a lot of trouble for Florida's defense. And if Florida's defense isn't ready for that, they could end up on the losing side of this series. The big thing for me is the goaltending matchup. Even though Aiden Hill's playing well, Sergei Bobrovsky is playing like Patrick Waugh in 1993 right now. And that's going to be a huge advantage for Florida. And that's why I say Florida wins it in 6. I know people are in here saying 5. I don't see 5. Would it be overly shocking if it happens in 5? No, but I think those would be very, very, very close games, and there would be like 1-0, 2-1, maybe even 3-2 games. So the game's all decided by a goal. Maybe even if it's a 2-goal game, I think at most it's decided by a goal and an empty netter. That's it. So, but I'm going with Florida in 6.
Just to say, the people saying that Florida's going to win in 5, that means Florida's going to win 3 series on the road. I don't see that one happening. And it's the one thing to say about Vegas, the one thing I have to bring up about them is every time we've wanted to count them out. I mean, as far as like everybody that's been watching hockey, game 1, they get waxed by the Winnipeg Jets. What happens? They win an overtime game in Winnipeg, and I think they even won 2 overtime games in Winnipeg. They go home in the series in 5. Then it's against the Edmonton Oilers. Oh, no, the Edmonton Oilers beat them up 5-1 in game 2. Oh, no, and they even took a 1-0 lead in game 3. What did they do? They came back. They won game 3, 5-1. Then Edmonton evens the series. Florida wins the next 2 games. That's all she wrote for them. And then in this series, they go up 3-0. Dallas wins the next 2. Oh, no, is Vegas starting to blink? No. Vegas then took them and gave them an absolute beatdown. I was trying to come up with an analogy, but everyone I think might have gotten us demonetized. Oh, we don't have to worry about that. Filk's have already murdered somebody. But it's one of those things. I think every single time you want to count out Vegas, Vegas will prove you wrong. That's where the hard part is for me. But I got to look at this, guys, and I got to go team of destiny. The Panthers in 6. Because I think if this series is tied at 2, Panthers win a tight game in game 5, they go home, it's not going back to Vegas, especially since there's 9,000 travel days. What do you guys think about that? There's 2 travel days for every single travel day or whatever.
I mean, yeah, you're flying from, coast to coast and Stanley Cup final. I'm not surprised at it by all.
I'm not surprised at that. Two things that I would say about this. First thing is Florida is a well-rested team. And we saw the Rangers burn out last year against Tampa after taking a 2-0 lead. And everybody thought the Rangers were going to march to the Stanley Cup Finals after that. Florida's well-rested. And they play, and not only that, but both of these teams play a very physical, grinded-out type game, high-paced. That takes a toll on your body. So for Florida, it's great that they got the rest they needed. Could they end up losing the first game because of the rust factor? Sure. But again, Vegas won on Monday?
Yeah, Monday.
They won on Monday. They're not going to play again until Saturday. So I know Florida's had a lot more rest than that, but it's still a decent amount of time between games. So I would say that the rest factor is a huge thing. The other thing is that Vegas did not play well at various points in series against inferior teams to Florida. Florida beat the crap out of the best team after going down 3-1 in that series. They absolutely demoralized the Bruins. Just demoralized them. Then they shut down the core four in Toronto. And then they took what was looked at as one of the best well-coached units in the NHL in Florida. And they got Teuvo Teravainen back. No Max Pacioretty or Andrei Svechnikov, obviously. But they put their game to them and stifled them. To me, I now see why people are saying Florida in 5. I see it now. I don't agree with it, but I see it. So for me, Vegas, if they've truly learned from their mistakes in those series, then this series will go long. If they haven't and they're up against a buzzsaw, then this is going to end quicker than we all think.
And again, it's amazing what they were able to do against the Boston Bruins, the Florida Panthers, that is, and how well they played. The game that really opened up your eyes was Game 6, when Boston took the lead after being down 3-2 in the third period, and then Florida just didn't go away. They would not let them away. And then obviously Game 7, Brandon Montour tying the game late, and Verhaeghe in overtime. So I think this is going to be an immensely entertaining series. It's certainly not going to be Florida's last visit to the Stanley Cup Finals. And we're going to be going more into the Stanley Cup Finals in just a moment on the Bar Talk segment. But first, we got to give a shout out to DraftKings. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever to answer.
I'm going to say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. Welcome back, everybody, to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, where we're gauging our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. Are you so confident you're buying everybody around? Or, oh, God, just give me a shot, or just so I'll have a beer. And, of course, play along down in the comments down below. And, 4th of July is coming, everybody. Why go to the liquor store? Make it a Drizly night. Have them bring everything to you. Beer, wine, liquor, whatever you want. They'll do all the work. Click the link down below. And, of course, everybody, the Big Apple Hockey Trucker hats are available. Are available. Click the link below and get more out of that. By the way, in 2 weeks, we will have our draft stream. Can't wait for that. We had a great time last year. Filk breaking down every single spot. It's 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
No, the draft, I think it's like June 20. No, the draft is like June 26th, 28th, somewhere around there. Free agency is only like a few days after the draft this year. It's close together.
No, it's like a week or so, I think. I don't know. Let's see here.
Coming soon, the Big Apple Hockey Draft stream.
It's the 20th.
You're gonna have it here. Yeah, you're gonna have Anthony hitting the phones. You're gonna have Filk breaking down every single prospect, and you're gonna have me doing shots every single time that there's a trade. So, also, everybody, once again, keep in mind you can go read the Pick of Destiny, the article that I wrote the other day about the finals. Staying on the finals right now, Anthony alluded to him earlier as his X Factor player. Adin Hill in these playoffs, 7-3, 937 save percentage, best in the playoffs. And number 2, Sergei Bobrovsky. He's 11-2 with a 935 save percentage. By the way, hey Phil, do you know who's number 3 in save percentage in the NHL playoffs?
Not sure.
That would be Igor Shesterkin, who is a .931 save percentage. Anthony, do you know who number 4 is?
I see where this is going. Is it Ilya Sorokin?
It's Ilya Sorokin with a .929. So how about that, boys? Although part of me happens to say these guys played a lot more games. I mean, the .935 with 10 games and 13 games, that's really good. Yeah. All right, but Anthony, you already alluded to this, but I'm going to ask you it again. It's probably just going to be a layup for you. Adin Hill has to outplay Sergei Bobrovsky in this series.
Yeah, this is a layup. Sergei Bobrovsky is playing really like some of the best hockey of his career. So yeah, it's going to be hard to do, but it's certainly around, Mark, certainly around, which I'm actually surprised. Usually you start off Bar Talk with the Ranger and Islander topics, then you kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop on this one. So
it's going to work its way backwards because trust me, the Rangers made headlines today.
It's around.
And we have a good around. Take on the Islanders. All right. So that's a round for you, Anthony, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's a round. Filk. Hitting the layup button.
There's a bear shit in the woods.
All right. So
I don't think I even need to give more explanation than that.
All right. I'm actually going to not make this a hat trick, guys. Usually I would like to do that just to promote the hats, but I'm going to go beer on this. If you're telling me he's got to make saves like the one he made in Game 5, laying flat on his back, knocking the puck away from the net, and he would lose, by the way, then that's the guy he might have to be. Vegas's defense is better than what people let on. And we're going to be talking more about their actual defense, but their defensive scheme, they don't let up as many good opportunities. Sergei Bobrovsky might beat him in saves above expected, but save percentage still might go Adin Hill's way. Look, does he have to let in less goals than Sergei Bobrovsky? Yeah. Does that count? Not as much. Speaking about which, Filk, Vegas Golden Knights, 31 points among defensemen. They're second to Edmonton. I mentioned that in the A block. But the Florida defenseman, 26 points. Brandon Montour, 9 points in 2 2-goal games. The Vegas defenseman will produce more offense than the Panthers defense.
This is actually not a layup. So I'll just start with that. Good job. We'll give you a golf pot for that one.
Well, we like the debates.
Yeah. I think this is going to be very close. I'm going to say beer just because I think that might end up being the case. But if Brandon Montour just goes off and channels his inner Paul Coffey, then that could be a determining factor as to whether or not it goes towards the Panthers' way. And the Panthers' defense is good in transition. Guys like Ekblad, Montour, and Forsling can all skate very well and move the puck in transition. So, to me, it could go either way. That's why I'm going with beer.
Anthony.
Yeah, I'm going to go beer, mostly because I think, based on what he did in the regular season, Montour has the ability to kind of really turn it up offensively. He's probably the most dynamic defenseman playing in the series when it comes to just everything, the skating and the puck moving, et cetera. So just for that alone, I tilt more towards – I lean more towards Florida here. So it's a beer.
This one I am going to make a hat trick. Let's just put it in right there. And also say it's a beer for me too. I actually forgot that hats get swept away right there. But it's a beer for me too, guys, because I think Vegas has probably the best top 4 defensemen in the NHL, you could argue. If not, they're top 5. And now they're one of 2 teams left in the playoffs. But to borrow the line, to be fair, Brandon Montour goes off, it might be completely different. And that's going to be because he's the guy I think out of all of them. Like Ekblad's a good defenseman. We all know this. Pietrangelo, good defenseman. He had a goal last series too. But you know what? You get some of these guys like Montour. Again, 2 goal games. No Panther had a 2-goal game in the playoffs until Brendan Montour. He's got 2 of them. So we're going to see about that. Speaking of a guy that's got plenty of goals right now, the most in Las Vegas history in the playoffs goes to William Karlsson. He has 10 goals right now. By the way, did you know 8 was their record? And they went to the Stanley Cup Finals and a couple conference finals. That is bizarre to me. But he's got 10 goals right now. He had 2 in the clincher in Game 6 on Monday. Filk, William Karlsson is a Conn Smythe favorite for Vegas.
Get the button going again.
All right.
It's you know what, you're looking at a player that has 10 goals and he's leading the team in goal scoring. He's not the point scorer, but yes, he is a Conn Smythe favorite. He's one of, I would say, 2 or 3 guys that if Vegas won, you would look at them and say, hey, you're probably giving it to that guy. The other guy you're looking at is Eichel. And then
Phil, by the way, Phil, can I change one word? Can I change it to the Conn Smythe favorite for Vegas? Does that change your answer?
So is he the Conn Smythe? All right, yeah. So then that would change things. A Conn Smythe favorite is pretty broad. If you wanted to change it to the Conn Smythe favorite, then no, it's a beer at that point, and it's not as much of a layup.
All right. But who are your other ones?
It's almost like I feel like I'm Charlie Brown trying to kick the football, and Marc is Lucy just moving it while I'm trying to go and kick it.
All right. So, but who was the other Conn Smythe favorite you said for Eichel? And you mentioned one other one.
I would say Adin Hill, and then if I had to go 4, I would go Marchessault.
Okay, Anthony.
Yeah, it's if you. You know what? I'm gonna go. I'm tempted to still go around here. You know, there's only 2 guys that have the same or more goals than him, and they're both not playing anymore. You know, Hintz and Draisaitl, they've been eliminated. So technically, he's the leader in goals in the playoffs right now. He scored some big goals too. You know, and getting to double digits in the playoffs is impressive. You know, he seems to have some clutchness in his game. So Adin Hill's probably the other choice for me, but I think I'm going to go round. I think if he continues, especially if he scores, you know, maybe 2 to 3 more goals this series, I think he could wrap it up in a bow if Vegas wins the cup. So I'll go round.
I know where you're getting.
I'll point to something before you go, Marc. Evgeny Kuznetsov was the first 30-point player in the playoffs since 2009, Crosby and Malkin in 2018. He led the playoffs with 32 points that year. I thought with the way that he was playing and the positional value of center over wing that he was going to win the Conn Smythe for sure. Alexander Ovechkin scored 14 goals, had less points, and they gave it to him. So if William Karlsson ends with like 14, 15 goals, yeah, you could be looking at your Conn Smythe winner right there.
Right. You could start getting into that magic territory, like when you start talking, well, first off, if he goes off and scores 9, it's all his. Nobody's ever scored 20 goals in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that Leon Draisaitl was going to do it.
So,
but when I look at Karlsson, I think he's definitely making a solid case. My guy is Jack Eichel. Number 1 is Jack Eichel for me. Adin Hill would probably be number 2. And Marchessault is quickly coming up to get into those ranks. Now, is Karlsson there? Yeah, because Karlsson's having sort of like a little bit of a Claude Lemieux type of playoff run. And he's one of those guys. I mean, Claude Lemieux for the Devils, 95, fantastic. And he was a pest. He bothered everybody. He passed the eye test perfectly. By the way, guys, most game-winning goals in the playoffs this year was Matthew Tkachuk, and then just behind him, Carter Verhaeghe, Jonathan Marchessault, and Colin Stevenson.
Chandler, not
Chandler
Colin.
Stevenson. Fuck. Damn it. I forgot his name just as I was about to say it. All right.
He called him Colin.
We'll get the graphic up in a second. There it is. All right. See, we at least self-check. I can at least admit my faults. All right. Anthony, we're going to go to you first. Tkachuk and Verhaeghe will have more game winners than Marchessault and Stevenson in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Wait, where are you pulling all these topics from? They're not in the rundown. You're throwing the
Yeah, that was
for a loop here.
That was in the rundown.
He's interesting.
There's a
Not that one.
Yeah,
I'm just busting Mark's chops.
Yeah.
I'm just.
We got a lot of bar talk today. That's the thing.
I'm gonna go. I mean, based on just how clutch Tkachuk has been with his timeliness of him scoring big goals, I'm gonna go round. But something like this is so hard to predict. Usually, like I said, sometimes the unsung hero who pops a game-winning goal, thus Howden for Vegas. But yeah.
Well, then Stevenson in game 2.
I'll go beer. I'll go beer.
All right. Beer on that one. Filk, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go beer. I would love to say round just because I think Tkachuk is one of the most clutch scorers in the game right now. But the way Marchessault has been playing lately, I just what are you laughing at, man? Oh, that was
I just realized that now. Well, he could have called him Turner. He could have called him Turner Stevenson too.
Yeah, but the spelling would be wrong.
No, because I knew it had the. I knew it had the T. Look, I know a lot of stuff. I can't help it. Sometimes the wires get crossed.
Oh God, Mark.
I think we just lost Anthony for a minute.
Oh man, I think the Rangers. I think everybody in the chat would be jumping all over that one because Colin writes for Newsday. But
I inadvertently gave Colin a shout out. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, Colin's work is great. He's one of the top guys from the Rangers. If anybody doesn't follow him on Twitter or look at his work in Newsday, he's actually really good, and he doesn't get some of the fanfare that Vince and Molly Walker and Arthur Staple get. So definitely follow Colin Stevenson for some good Rangers content. I would say I'm going to say beer here. I would like to think that it would be around, but I can't necessarily say round for sure. But this is I think it'll happen. I think Verhaeghe might be the one that ends up scoring more of the game winners in this series than anybody.
Keith Tkachuk had 3 game winners in a conference finals. I can't recall the last time anybody's ever done that. That is just.
You just call him
Matthew.
Matthew, Jesus.
Wow. Oh man.
All right. Actors are always better on the second take.
I gotta say, you were bar none probably the worst in terms of getting names. You were at the top of the list as the most.
I went through all this. I even wrote his name down 9,000 times.
Do you guys remember that old Snickers commercial where he goes into the room and he's seeing the boss and the guy's name is Dubas and he calls him dumbass?
That's A&W commercial because it's pretty thick-headed.
I thought that was a Snickers commercial, but
no. I guess the Snickers one you may be thinking of where are you? I'm in Tampa Bay. Who am I? I'm the coach. Who are you? I'm Batman. So,
Mark definitely needs like 22 games.
Well, guys, Matthew Tkachuk, three game winning goals in a playoff run. He's been incredible, and I got to buy around. I think he's getting at least one. And it wouldn't surprise me if Carter Verhaeghe had the goal to win the Stanley Cup. That's how good of a player he's been and how clutch he's been in his career.
That's a hard no on that, Johnny.
Hey, Mark, do you have
Mark do a couple of shots during the podcast?
Anthony.
Mark, do you have? I'm just curious. Do you have something against Brady Tkachuk? I mean, while you're getting names wrong, you keep calling him Keith. You can at least call him Brady. for
that is true, Anthony. That is true. It is a little bit of my age showing because I mean, hell, I even had that. I think it was Acclaim Power Play 98, the video game, the one that
NHL Breakaway 98.
NHL Breakaway. Yeah, it was Acclaim that did it. And and the commercial with Keith Kachuk saying, "I was named for a goal being scored." Kachuk. Or when it was the Fox commercial where they just moved to Phoenix and they're looking over at him at a diner and going, he says he's a hockey player in Arizona. Is that really going to happen? And then what's his name? T-Chuck? No, we better make him pay cash. That commercial was hilarious. So
I think
which is going to be another video for me to do.
Maybe for the draft day stream, I think we should have thing for every mistake you make with a name or something, you have to take a shot and see how drunk you'll be by the time the show ends. Because I think it would be good entertainment. We have a lot of people watching.
It's not something we want to do.
Well, because I'm going to have to do it at home this year because since I added the pool table at the bar, it makes it a little bit more difficult for me to do it. Maybe I'll do that instead. But
together.
The beautiful Maria Cosenza. All right, I will make sure I get it together, hon. I'll do that for you. Speaking about things that are hard to watch, and a group of people that might find this a little bit hard to watch this game. When you watch this series. The finals. Jack Eichel playing for Vegas. Sam Reinhart and Brandon Montour playing for Buffalo. Playing for Florida. I'm leaning right into the next question already. This is going to be a tough series for Buffalo fans to watch. Filk.
Really? Really?
There it is. I got it for you. Yeah,
you're telling me, you're asking me whether or not this is going to be tough when three of their former players are playing. I mean, come on, Mark. I mean, I think Core said you were so silly before. I think it was. I kind of have to repeat that sentiment. You are a very silly man, Mark. Very silly man.
And of course, by the way, I guess I have to go with this one for Anthony wants Mark dead for the amount of names I mispronounced. All right, so Phil, that's all you're gonna say with that one.
I mean, I don't know what else really there is to say. I mean, they dragged one guy through the mud. Mm-hmm. Brandon Montour they thought was a nothing burger and got rid of him. And then Sam Reinhart, I guess they just couldn't afford to pay him or didn't want to pay him and just decided to move him out. I mean, Kevin Adams, I mean, I know that the Sabres played well this season, but he moved out three key players, and now they're all playing for the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, Kevin Adams, you reap what you sow, bud.
Anthony.
So I'm actually going to play devil's advocate on this one, just for the sake of debate, really, because it would be boring if I agree with Filk, which I do a lot. But in this instance, I'm gonna say shot, mostly because Jack Eichel, they had no choice. He didn't want to be a Buffalo Sabre anymore, so they had to finally do what was right. They traded him, and in return, they got back Alex Tuck, who had a hell of a year for Buffalo. Peyton Krebs, who was going to be a pretty damn good player. The Sam Reinhart trade, they got back their franchise goalie, Devin Levy, in that trade now, and he's there in Buffalo. And Brandon Montour is the only one where I can't spin in that direction. I mean, they gave up on him. I think they got like a 5th-round pick for him. So that one's tough, I'm sure. Sabre fans watch that and like, damn, really screwed up on that one. But the other two guys, they got back a lot of good pieces that are helping them win now. And again, one of them in Eichel was banged down the door to get out of Buffalo. So, it's a little different. So that's my take on it. I'll say shot. Buffalo is an up and coming team.
I'm actually going to go beer on this one. And I was leaning towards shot on this one. I upgraded it for beer only because it's sort of like if you get a guy number 2 overall and then you trade him, or even number 1 overall and you trade him, and then he immediately succeeds somewhere else. Because after all, if you go on Rangers Twitter, Pavel Buchnevich is the greatest player ever to wear a Rangers jersey, and that they ever gave away. People, there's been other players, and then on top of it, Alexei Lafreniere has already been traded to the Vancouver Canucks, and or the Montreal Canadiens, either one. That goes all the time everywhere. So all right, but as far as so that could end up stinging and going, oh man. But Jack Eichel was producing in Buffalo. There's a little bit of a Matthew Shane angle with that, where once you got the drama over with, you got this younger player who was flourishing, a la Nate McKinnon did, and now you got Tage Thompson doing it. So now, I for one, you know what? You look back at it and it's like hearing about an ex-girlfriend that got married. You're like, hey, good for you. Go on. It's not something with me. So just I'm happy with what my situation is now and my brighter future ahead. So, and there you go, babe. The brighter future ahead for us. So, but again, I'm going to go beer on that.
Next time you called Matthew,
it was a great. That's what she said. I forgot all about that. I think it was you had it earlier in the thing. But I mean, I for one, you know what, Buffalo fans, you got your goalie of the future, just as Anthony said, from the Sam Reinhart trade. I forgot who they got with the first round pick from the Florida Panthers in that trade. Then you have Jack Eichel. You still got, I think, Peyton Krebs as well. They're set up. They're fine. Guys, a lot of news was made today with the New York Rangers because the Rangers are in deep talks with Peter Laviolette to become head coach.
Laviolette.
I knew I screwed it up again.
You did.
Peter Laviolette to become the Rangers head coach. But the Rangers also received permission to speak to John Heinstay, who was also fired by the Nashville Predators. Oh my goodness, I'm falling apart at the seams.
You are. Pull yourself together.
I am pulling it together. It's going to be great. Filk, I heard a wise man say this in our group chat. The Rangers are better off with Chris Knobloch than John Hines. Put up the easy button. All right.
At least you didn't call him Chuck Knobloch.
Can you imagine if Marc called him Chuck Knobloch? Oh my God!
Unfortunately, I didn't call him Chuck Knobloch.
Part about this right now is if Marc would have called him Chuck Knobloch, I would have just lost. I would have died. I would have absolutely died. I just, you know what? Go off on a tangent because this is just ridiculous. So you're telling me, if you're Chris Drew, you're telling me that you think it's a better idea to bring in a guy, like Johnny says, plug in or remove and then plug back in, basically, like rebooting up. So yeah, former Predators coach Hines Ward. Yeah, definitely. But it's just if you're going to go with John Hines and you're going to pull a nepotism pick and go with John Hines, why are you doing that over Peter Laviolette? I don't understand that. To me, John Hines is a nothing burger of a coach. He hasn't done anything good at the NHL level. He hasn't done anything with either of the teams that he was with. He hasn't gotten past the first round of the playoffs. I don't understand why you would bring this guy in. And then listen, I know that the rosters weren't great in Jersey. The only reason they made the playoffs in 2018 was because Taylor Hall had a point in 26 consecutive games. I mean, I don't understand why you would bring in a guy that's a meh type coach. I don't. You might as well just go with a rookie coach at that point. Just if you're going to do that, like your job is on the line. So if any one of us were a general manager and our jobs are on the line, who are we hiring? The guy that has a Stanley Cup, has been 3 Stanley Cup Finals, and is one of the most winning coaches of all time? The guy that's nothing burger, that you kind of know what he is already at the NHL level, and he's just a meh coach, or a rookie head coach with potential. Where are you ranking these three? Because I'm going the winner, the rookie, and then the nothing burger. And that, to me, it's like asking who would you rather have on your friggin' men's league team, me or Leon Draisaitl? If you say anything other than Leon Draisaitl, you deserve to be Baker-acted and put in an institution. Yes, Drury's job is on the line. It is. Because this hire is going to make or break him. And let's just say right now, he goes and hires Hines. He goes and hires a rookie over Laviolette. One of those two options. And then he gets fired 3 years later.
It's his third coach.
You know what's going to happen? The next team is going to look at him and they're going to question his decision-making ability because they're going to think he's out to lunch for not hiring the guy that could command respect, take care of the young talent, and get the team to the next level. What are you doing? Your job's on the line. Hire the safe pick.
Now, and again, it blows my mind that they're even thinking about that. Anthony, answer not only the question, but expand on Chris Drury's job is on the line.
All right, first answer the question. It's around if you're going to roll the dice and pass over a guy like Laviolette, I mean, at least at that point, give it to a guy that's within your organization. You know, maybe knows some of the players, but to pass up on Laviolette, to bring in a guy like John Hines, is just nepotism at this point. You know, we all kind of know about the connection between Drury and Hines at this point, and especially this late in the game. I mean, the Rangers coaching search, by all accounts, is pretty far down the line, almost at the finish line. So all of a sudden, to bring in a guy for an interview who just got fired, yesterday, and bring him in now. I mean, to me, it just speaks volumes. It just speaks volumes about maybe how they feel about Laviolette for whatever reason. Maybe they're not, totally, in love with him. It's almost like, they were just looking for something better to come along, or in their eyes, perceived to be better to come along. The fact that they're going through this now tells me that maybe they're not all that sold on Laviolette. And I just, like Filk said, John Hines is kind of meh. I mean, he's vanilla. He's like Josh Bailey. It's just like, it's here or there. I don't understand it. I think it would be a big mistake. And Marc, to your point, to explain about why his job's on the line, this would be his third coach. Whoever he hires, this is his third coach in his tenure so far. So yeah, his job's absolutely on the line. If he hires
technically
John Hines,
second because he fired David Quinn.
But if he hires John Hines or any other coach, and let's say whoever it was, doesn't matter, but especially Hines, if they had a bad year, they missed the playoffs or they lost in the first round again, at that point, what are you going to fire the coach again, hire another coach? No, at that point, they're going to look upstairs to Chris Drury and they'll be like, all right, well, it's clearly you're not getting a job done. Maybe you're the problem. So it's around to that one, too, about his job being
right
on
now. Anybody who thinks that Chris Drury has this, unrelenting job security, you are sadly, and I mean sadly, and I'm going to emphasize that for a third time, sadly mistaken.
Yeah, I know. And
wants to win now. And if they
Phil,
don't,
sorry, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
If they don't win with this next head coach, Chris Drury is more than likely gone. He's likely gone because this guy put together the most talented team in New York Rangers history on paper heading into this playoff run. They didn't win. Coach, he got into it with the coach. That wasn't a bad move. That wasn't a good look for this organization. It was a really, really, really bad look. And then you have a guy that's going to come in after this, and now he has to handle a pressure cooker situation where they have to win now. You're not going to put that on a rookie.
And develop talent.
If you think John Hines is going to be the guy that gets them over the hump when he's been in the NHL for what, almost 10 years now and hasn't done anything, I'm sorry. That's just a terrible, terrible decision to make, and it screams nepotism. And this organization is known for nepotism, apparently. But I wish people would stop talking about Patrick Roy because he hasn't coached in almost 10 years as well. He came into the league right when Hines was leaving. Or, I mean, he was leaving the league right when Hines came in. And Patrick Roy had a great first year, was Jack Adams' guy. And then the team's regressed for the next 2 seasons heavily. So I would rather have Patrick Roy over John Hines, and that's not saying a lot about Patrick Roy or John Hines.
Filk, I got to keep extending from what you're saying right there because, look, I do think John Hines is a good coach in the NHL. I think he can land another job. This is the premier job in the NHL right now. Whether or not you want to argue it's this, Toronto Maple Leafs, or the Calgary Flames, because all 3 teams you can have a new coach take it over and conceivably win the Stanley Cup. Now, first, let me go with Chris Knobloch, the advantage of him, brought to you by Steven, who mentioned this on his podcast a couple weeks ago. Chris Knobloch, he could be a good option. He does know the roster. He knows most of the players that are on there because he's coached them before, albeit briefly, for about 2 weeks. The players responded. They had their best efforts. And yes, Filk, and it was definitely an FU to David Quinn when they did that. Now, let's go to another theme. This is the Stanley Cup Finals. Come Saturday, Bruce Cassidy will be the second coach since 2009, and I'm going all the way back to 2009 just to give myself an extra year. But since 2009 to coach 2 different teams to the Stanley Cup Finals. Who was the previous guy? Peter Laviolette. Go with this guy. If you're telling me these are my choices, I'm going with him. But I know what the problem is. I know what the problem is, guys, and I think there's still a glimmer of hope they might get Quenneville, and it's not happening, and neither should they. So I'm adamant about that.
I'm going to give you a stat here. There are 3 coaches in the modern era to go to the Stanley Cup Finals with 3 different teams and win at least 1 Stanley Cup. Can you name those 3?
I looked at your Twitter today, so I do. I can.
Oh, well, you're banned then. Anthony, I would ask the question, but he just went away.
He's just taking care of a situation.
Yeah, probably with Ella or something.
Yeah.
So
Anthony, you're back.
Yeah.
Did you hear that question that I asked?
Oh, no. What was the question?
Okay, so there are 3 coaches in the modern era to go to the Stanley Cup Finals with 3 different teams and win at least 1 Stanley Cup. Do you know who they are?
Let's see here. At least one of them won the cup?
They've won the cup at least 1 time out of those 3 appearances.
Let's see the Ducks. Mike Babcock has to be one of them. Because he went to the finals
2 teams.
Finals with 2 teams.
It's got to be 3 teams.
3 teams.
3 different teams.
3 different teams. Mike Babcock is not an answer.
Let's see, I don't know.
So the first one, obviously, since we're talking about him, is Peter Laviolette.
Yeah, that one I see.
Yeah. So that's the guy that's why this is coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is Scotty Bowman. He went to the finals with Montreal, with Pittsburgh, with Detroit. He's
won a Stanley Cup with each of them.
With each of those teams, yeah. So he's won with 3 different teams in the Stanley Cup Finals. He's the only coach to do that. And then the other one is actually Mike Keenan.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Keenan went to the finals in 87 and 85 with Philly. Lost both times to Edmonton.
92 in Chicago.
Lost to Pittsburgh. And then won in 94 with the Rangers. So, yeah.
You know what's funny, Phil? He in 94, after that, he never made it to a conference finals ever again.
No, he never made it to a conference finals again after that. He got to the second round in 96 with St. Louis. And
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, and Yzerman sent them to the conference finals. So, yeah, but Bowman, it just that obviously that's one. But the point is here that Laviolette is a level of winner that this team needs. They need that. And they need a guy who's going to come in and command that locker room. They need someone who's going to hold everybody accountable. They need someone who isn't a player's coach. Everything that they have and that they need, that they're looking for, is right there in front of them in this one guy. This should be a no-brainer of a hire. I'd have to imagine that they're either doing their due diligence or that there's something that they didn't like, or maybe they think that the players won't respond to Laviolette.
But here's what I have to say with that, Filk. If you watched the 2011-2012 Road to the Winter Classic, you can see who Peter Laviolette is. He's both a disciplinarian and a player's coach. Like, this guy talks to players very well. Yes, his message wears out, but he also can give them an earful if you need to. There was a game, I think, where the Flyers got stomped 6-0 or something like that. And he just kind of walked up to them and said, guys, look, this sucks. It's horrible. Let it burn on you. And we'll wake up tomorrow and go to practice, and then that's it. John Hines is not going to be that guy. Chris Knobloch. All right, we're going to move on because we do have a tremendous show for us tonight. And while we're at it, speaking about people that might be a little bit overrated or talks breaking down elsewhere, Kyle Dubas may have broken off talks with the Pittsburgh Penguins, according to a report today. Anthony, Lou Lamoriello should hire Kyle Dubas as the GM and have Dubas succeed him as the president when Lou retires.
Yeah, so this is around. Just to expand on what really transpired here was Elliot Friedman said that one of the reasons why it seems as though Dubas, the Penguins, hasn't materialized yet is that he thinks that there may be a team or teams that they don't know about that are kind of expressing interest in Dubas, and that made Islanders beat writer from The Athletic Kevin Kurz kind of tweet about it and then post his story to an article he posted a couple of weeks ago about how Kyle Dubas could be a good fit for the Islanders. So is it possible that it's a snag because maybe Lou likes to work in secrecy? Maybe he's talking to Kyle Dubas about coming to the Islands. Kurz mentioned obviously they have the relationship, mutual respect between each other. So look, Lou Lamoriello is going to be 81 years old in October when next season starts. This is a guy that, while there's no doubt about players love to play for him, and, he's transformed the Islanders into a very first-class organization with how the players are treated, et cetera, et cetera. 81, let's face it, no matter who you are, you're eventually going to start to kind of slow down. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for Lou Lamoriello to slowly start to transition into his retirement. Hand Dubas the reins as general manager. He can remain as president for maybe another year or two, or however he wants to kind of phase himself out. But I think it would be a great move for the Islanders and their organization. And Lou's a proud guy. This is a guy that's not going to like to hand off any control. Like, for instance, there's no way he would ever do this for just some young assistant general manager looking to step into the first role as a general manager. But for someone like Kyle Dubas that he knows, respects, and likes, I think it's a situation that he would consider. So, and it would benefit the Islanders. It's a young, fresh face into the role that views the game a little differently. So, this is around for me. Whether or not this is the reason why there's a snag between Pittsburgh, that I don't know, but I do think it makes sense.
Filk.
Yeah, I would say this is around. I not only that, but I just think that the Islanders need to change their approach from this old school approach that they have with Lou Lamoriello to something more fresh based and maybe a little more analytics based with Dubas. I don't like to preach analytics, but I think the Islanders definitely need to employ a little more of that. They have their own, I'd imagine, because every team has their own. But I think Dubas really preaches that pretty hard in Toronto. And I think that should be a welcome change for the Islanders and their fans. So I would say, yeah, I think this is a slam dunk.
I'm not convinced, guys. I'm going to go beer on this. Kyle Dubas, it just has. I got to ask this question. What does he have for a good track record? One playoff series win and just losing a lot of other times. Yeah, he lost the better teams, but still, like, I don't see it with Kyle Dubas just yet. And the idea that he might come in and maybe even bring Sheldon Keefe with him, it's just, I'm trying to think of other comparisons to use. I thought about Nate from Ted Lasso, but that guy apparently is a genius on that show. It's sort of like, it's just like, why are we going gaga over Kyle Dubas, who the Maple Leafs almost couldn't get him out in time? I love that one. That story of, well, we're going to bring him back, but then he asked for a raise. For what? For what? His team did nothing. They won one more round in the second round than they did in the previous 19 years. One more game. That was it. I'm starting to get into that voice. All right. Succeeding him, by the way, Filk, in Toronto, Brad Treliving going on from the Calgary Flames now to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he's got a big obstacle ahead of him. For Brad Treliving to be successful, Brad Treliving needs to get John Tavares to waive his no move clause. Filk.
I mean, in order to be successful, he needs to.
Or just then he needs to do it. How about that?
I'm going to say shot either way, just because I don't think he needs to have Tavares waived to do anything. I mean, he's going to have to move some sort of salary somewhere. I don't think he's going to be able to move Tavares. I don't think Tavares wants to move. He has the no movement clause, and that contract sucks, to be honest with you. I mean, he hasn't looked all that great since signing it. I mean, the first year he had like 40 goals and like 80 points, but like they're not moving John Tavares. I just don't think they really can at this point, unless they retain. And and not only that, but I mean, he has to agree to it first. So I would say no. I think that contract's only going to get worse over time, because John Tavares is not a great skater. He's never been a great skater. Although his skating improved, massively early on in his career, he's still not considered a great skater by today's standards. So that's only going to get worse as he gets older, and it's going to be harder for him to keep up with the game as that contract goes, due to the sheer lack of foot speed. So, I mean, it would be best if they moved him, but I would say shot right now, maybe at some point in the future, but shot right now.
Anthony.
I'm actually around, and I'll tell you why. They need to change the makeup of their team. I think this is the year that the core four finally gets broken up. And listen, you can't lose Austin Matthews. You got to do what you can to keep him. Same thing with Mitch Marner. These are elite young players. Even William Nylander, he's 27 years old. His contract's up in a year. You got to keep him too. You can't keep a 32-year-old John Tavares in the lineup, which ends up costing you a guy like William Nylander. So I'm not saying, he's going to get moved, but they need to at least try to get him to waive his no movement clause, because if you can get rid of Tavares, that will enable you to re-sign Nylander. You're more than likely to be able to extend Matthews long-term. So getting rid of a 32-year-old that has two or 3 years left on his contract that pays him a little over $11 million, that would be huge for Toronto. But Filk is right. I mean, it's going to be hard because, he has to agree to waive it. But I think they have to at least take a shot. And you know what? Maybe if they come to him and say, listen, the new GM, Treliving, says, I'm going in a different direction here. And he really kind of lays out that in a nice way that they don't want him anymore and they're moving in a different direction. Maybe the player will say, okay, and give him a very limited amount of teams. But he needs to at least take a stab at that, because keeping him, if it ultimately costs you William Nylander, I mean, that's that's just bad assets management because of just the age alone.
Not going to have a choice.
Oh, by the way, I forgot. Who's the one that signed Tavares to that contract?
Kyle Dubas.
Oh, good. Let's get him to manage another organization to the ground. No, the answer is you know what? He needs to get him to do it. I'll go with beer on this because you know what? It would certainly help. But John Tavares is going to tell you to go scratch. You wanted me to come home. You begged for me to come here. I went through a world of hell I tarnished my legacy where I was. He could have retired as an Islander and been a god, regardless of what that team ever did, because he was one of the best Islanders ever to suit up. Sorry, everybody. That's a fact. And then now it's just, now you're going to be like, no, we really need to get rid of you. We'll figure out a different way. Maybe don't sign everybody to Austin Matthews, an $11.6 million contract. Mitch Marner, 10.9, basically $11 million.
Matthews to that.
Yeah, but you got to sign those. I'm trying to go down the list. Morgan Riley, 7.5 until the end of time, or these are TJ Brody. Those are all, I know they're no-brainer guys, but maybe try to figure out other ways. How about don't sign Tavares to an $11 million deal? Like that was it just they didn't manage their assets. Now we're the Toronto Maple Leafs. Good luck, Bradtree living. Because and as much as I thank you, 14 of you that is still here to hear me go off about this, but I just can't help but look at the Maple Leafs and go, okay, what are you doing next year? What are you doing? What are you doing? You have no more assets to trade. Good for you. And let's see. They got a first rounder from Boston and a first rounder in 2024. And then they have no draft picks besides one from the Islanders that they got in the Pierre Engvall deal until 2024 in the third round. Nice job. Nice job. So that's the first 3 rounds. I'm sorry. All right. Florida Panthers, John Hines was fired this week, by the way. Guys, what do you think about Barry Trotz? I keep saying it. What? Because we talked about the Florida Panthers so much. Anyway. So, Nashville Predators, John Hines fired. What do you guys think about it? It's sort of like a Rick Tocchet situation. They interviewed Andrew Burnett before firing him.
It's a weird situation. I don't know why you would ever do that.
Yeah. But Andrew Burnett is the perfect coach for the Predators. Anthony.
Perfect. I mean, yeah, I think he's a good fit. I mean, when kind of Quenneville got, banned, he did a good job in Florida. Small sample size, but I think he's a young coach that has potential to keep growing. Nashville's a team that is a mix of some veterans in Johansson and Duchesne, Forsberg, and then you have some younger guys coming up. I think he could put his own stamp on the team. With him in conjunction with Barry Trotz, 2 new faces. I think for the Predators right now, it's like I said, it's a little bit of a fresh start. So, I mean, I'll go beer just because I don't know if he's the perfect coach, but he's a good one. He's a good choice. They made a good hire. It's just I don't know if he's perfect, but so it's a beer in that aspect.
Filk, what do you think? Andrew Burnett. Almost said John Hines.
Same thing. I'm going to have to go beer just because I'm not sure if he's a perfect fit. But, I mean, he was number 2 on my wish list. My top 3 for this Rangers job were Mike Sullivan, Andrew Burnett, and then Peter Laviolette. And I think that if anything, Burnett seems like the guy who's a happy medium of a player's coach and a barker, who understands offenses very well, but plays a good, solid, structured game, understands X's and O's, knows how to make some adjustments mid-game. I think that he is a good fit for a team. I think he could probably get a lot out of that roster, and that roster is really not that great right now. So I think going forward, I think he is probably a very good fit. The word perfect is not really conducive here for me.
I'm just going to highlight Steven's comment on this one right here of how much will Barry Trotz be involved as a coach, as former coach, and why is it important to bring that he went for a coach who brings offensive knowledge to the bench with him being a defensive guy?
I'll step in right I'm going to step right in right there because I saw the clip from Barry Trotz today. And basically what he said was they were talking about drafting and going out and getting basically some home run swing type picks. What that tells me is that Barry Trotz probably isn't going to have his hands on as much as some people think. And I think he'll just be there for Andrew Brunette, given if Andrew Brunette wants to go to him for any advice.
Okay. Which actually would work out fine because then you still have a coach that's learning on the job. I've said this before about Andrew Brunette when they were trying to fit him in for the Rangers job. It wasn't going to work for the Rangers, I don't think. For the Nashville Predators, there's a little bit less pressure. He doesn't have to win right away. And you know something? I'm gonna go around on this one. I think it might be perfect. This is the first time Nashville is going with an offensive coach pretty much in their history. And you never see that with them at all. So you know what? Just it's great to see that Barry Trotz is already trying to change some philosophical things and not just trying to keep the status quo from Dave Poyle. So there you go. Okay. Alex DeBrincat is going to be an RFA in this offseason. Filk, let me start with you. Alex DeBrincat will be the biggest name traded this offseason.
Okay. I think I'm going to go around here. I think he's going to get moved, and I think he probably will be the biggest name moved. I don't necessarily see something like that, someone bigger rather being moved than him, but you can end up having a deal that comes out of nowhere like that Tkachuk Huberdeau deal last year. And that deal came out of nowhere. Nobody saw that coming. No one. And, I've watched the video on how that whole thing unfolded and with, Tkachuk being, an RFA and them not, giving him the deal that he was looking for. Maybe something like that's out there, but I mean, those instances are few and far between. I think it's a little more of a safer bet to say that Alex DeBrincat will probably get traded. And yeah, I think he'll probably be the biggest name though.
Anthony, what do you think?
I think, I can't say round for sure because, like Phil said, you never know. I mean, you didn't really know or see the Tkachuk for. Well, Tkachuk said he wasn't going to resign, so everyone knew he was going to be traded. But no one saw the trade itself of Tkachuk for Huberdeau to be executed. So you never know. I mean, and also too, there's guys like Marc Scheifele who could be moved in the Jets retool this summer. So that could be right up there. But I think DeBrincat's probably a safe bet to be traded. He's an RFA. There's already whispers that he's unsure if he wants to re-sign in Ottawa. Which, if that's the case, Ottawa would be foolish to not move him. They could also, get back some of the assets they spent to acquire him in the first place. So, I'm gonna say beer, but it could, I was close to doing round, but the uncertainty of the NHL's offseason where kind of big move could happen out of nowhere, makes me stick with beer.
I'm going to go beer too. I think he's a great asset for them. 25 years old, and he'll be 26 midway through the season next year. He still had 27 goals, 39 assists. I mean, that minus 31. Oh boy. How about that one? But I think he might get moved and he might be the biggest name. I'll tell you right now, this is the thing. Is he going to be the most productive player moved? That could be the case. Because if you because everybody wants to say he's getting traded every other day, Alexei Lafreniere, he gets moved. That's the biggest name. That's number 1 overall draft pick getting moved. I still don't see that happening because the New York Rangers are going to re-sign him.
No.
Even though he was first overall, he wouldn't be the biggest name moved over. No. DeBrincat's still a bigger name than Lafreniere right now.
Yeah, because of the fact that he's more productive. I can't agree with that at all.
Okay. Well, I was kind of stretching it a little bit on that one. Anthony wants to get all the ones I was cutting on this. Because I thought about trying to do an honest press conference too.
No.
All right.
Mark. No.
Don't want Bar Talk to end. All right. One of Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuck, or Pierre-Luc Dubois will be moved this summer in the Jets retool. I'm going to start this one off, and I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. I might even hit the layup button myself because I think it's definitely Connor Hellebuck. He does not want to be back in Winnipeg. And a lot of guys are rubbed the wrong way from Rick Bowness, which is so weird to say because that guy is like one of the most beloved coaches in the NHL. And as long as I know, he's been in the NHL spanning 5 decades. But I mean, I think it's definitely going to be Hellebuck, and I think PLD might be right behind him. You might see a teardown in Winnipeg. Filk?
I really wonder if they would move Dubois. I think they would probably be better served moving Scheifele considering the age. I just don't know if they would get as much back, even though Dubois isn't as productive as Scheifele is. I haven't heard anything about Hellebuck wanting out. I mean, is it possible that he ends up requesting out? Sure. I mean, that it's. I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility, but I'm gonna say Beer. I really don't know how likely it is that it's this summer. I know Scheifele, I believe, has 1 year left on his deal, so they would have to move him now, if anything, if they're really thinking about it. But Winnipeg, they made the playoffs. They kind of stumbled in, and then they lost to a Vegas team that really started playing some real good hockey. So, yeah, I think it could happen. I just don't know how exactly likely it is.
And Anthony, I think you know what, I'm going to go around. Dubois. Let's face it. It was 2 years ago that he was kind of openly admitted that he wanted to play for the Montreal Canadiens. He has RFA status, but I think the Jets could get ahead of that and maybe move him to get something for him. And then you have Hellebuck, who heard some, unconfirmed by major sources, but you heard some, whispers that he doesn't want to stay in Winnipeg. So if that's the case, they got to get something for their franchise goaltender, and it would make sense to trade him now. And then Mark Scheifele, too. 1 year left on his deal, as Filk mentioned. He's a guy that they could move to this offseason. Really, I think it's only Kyle Connor, Morrissey, that are probably – there are only 2 players that I think are off limits. You add Nikolai Ehlers, who had an up-and-down season because of injury. He's a guy they could move to. So
I was just going to say that.
Obviously not all these guys, but I think there's a very real chance that one of them gets shipped out this summer.
And one last one that I had. I thought I had it in here. I can't believe that it was I lost it. Anyway, Spencer Carberry was hired by the Capitals, and he was a former Caps head coach of the AHL affiliate. Anthony, Spencer Carberry will be the Caps coach in the 2026-27 season.
It seems it's like, I don't know.
Because you know where I'm getting at with this, right?
No,
I have no idea what you're getting at.
All right, Phil, go ahead first.
So basically what you're getting at is the fact that he's going to last his entire contract.
Yeah, and that you're talking about the Capitals, who are I'll start off, guys. It better be around, so I'm going to go with that. Because if I'm Carberry, I left jobs I took this job where I was the coach that was coming up through the ranks with them. And then you have Anaheim, who interviewed him, and a couple other organizations that were looking at him, and he's taking this job. I'm sorry. This is possibly one of the least attractive jobs that are on the market right now. You're talking about an aging team, cap strapped completely with contracts. And even though they did they got Sandin from Toronto, and he looked good at the end. And you got Alex Ovechkin, who's trying to approach Wayne Gretzky and try to break that record. Not for nothing, guys. The this better be a job. You better be telling me I'm getting more than 2 years, because this team is aging out. This guy deserves a younger team that was going to grow with him, and he can have a chance to improve. This team is going to do nothing but regress in those 2 years, guys. That's where I'm getting at with that. Phil, agree or disagree?
I do agree in the fact that they're going to regress. They don't have the youth to support that aging core, and that's the biggest problem. And not only that, but I think this is going to be the offseason where Evgeny Kuznetsov has finally moved. I mean, he has had some sort of disdain for that franchise for a couple of years now, kind of like Vladimir Tarasenko, how he requested a trade, 2 years ago, and then he finally got dealt to the Rangers at the deadline. So I think that you're looking at a player that's disgruntled there. Nicholas Backstrom is getting up there in age. Alexander Ovechkin is my age. I think he's actually, or me and Anthony's age. I think he's 38 now, or will be 38 in September.
You don't want to be my age, 45.
Yeah, no, not too many players are playing in the league at your age, Mark. So,
No.
But your best player is a 38-year-old goal scorer whose game is becoming increasingly one-dimensional because he just doesn't have really the foot speed to kind of keep up with the 5-on-5 portion of the game, the even strength portion of it. I mean, a lot of this team is being passed by. John Carlson still in his, I guess you could call them prime years, just because he's going to give you probably about 2 or 3 really good more years, and then you're going to start to look at a decline on him. Because Kuznetsov, same age range, a couple years younger than Carlson, but you're probably going to deal him, and that's where this team needs to. The general manager needs to make sure that he absolutely hits a home run in that Kuznetsov trade. Because if you don't, then you're screwing the franchise hard. So you're right. This is not an attractive job, but I think they are going to give Carberry the 4 years because I think that if ownership is smart, they're going to understand that this team is in a decline and that they're going to go through a transition during the entire life of that contract. And I think it would be unfair to give him 4 years and say, oh, you have 4 years to do something with this team, but you're being straddled with an albatross roster that's aging and flawed. Doesn't make sense to me.
Anthony, do you think he's going to be the coach 4 years from now?
I mean, the Capitals are a team that I think are going to go through a little bit of a rebuild. I think ownership obviously knows that, and I'm sure they kind of obviously told Carberry what their plan is for the team going forward. So I think even if the Capitals are dreadful the next 2 years because of them probably going through a rebuild, I don't think ownership or their GM Brian McLennan would fire him. So yeah, I think there's a good chance he's still the coach in 26, 27. But speaking of the Capitals, to close out Bar Talk, I added kind of one more banner just for comedic purposes and keep Marc on his toes. But here we go. Mark Williams will be engaged before Alex the rest of his record.
Oh boy, God, you're putting me on the spot with that one.
Wow, Anthony!
Alex Ovechkin
is still on this chat right now.
Yeah, I hope so too. Alex Ovechkin is 72 goals away from the record. If he scores 40 goals this year, that means he's only about 32 goals away from the record, which means, add that together, he could do it in 2 years. So my answer.
Oh my God!
My answer is round here. I think Ovechkin's going to do it in 2 years, and if Marc is still dragging his feet in 2 years and not moving things along here, I think she's going to tell him to go scratch for fear of not being able to commit. So I better, for Marc's sake, this better be around. Filk?
I had nothing to do with this, by the way. Anthony just pulling the prank on this. I would have to say beer, just because I don't know if Maria will be able to handle Marc for that long. I think the Marc messed ups might roll over into the dating life a little bit. maybe it just goes south from there. Oh God.
All right, so now it's on me. All right. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna buy around on this because I'm gonna hopefully do that. First off, the smart man is to buy the round on this. It might get downgraded to the beer because she still would have to say yes. So that would be another situation as well. But I'm more than happy in my situation and more than happy how it's progressing, and my lighting is still good enough to see how red I'm turning right now with this. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Anthony. I think I caught the number on the bus that you threw me under. It was the N78. That actually goes usually to Roosevelt Field. But first off, I have chosen wisely. I've chosen wisely. I'm very happy with that, and yeah, as long as she can deal with me rolling over and accidentally hitting her in their face in our sleep, that actually happened once. So it's still it's
job, Marc.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, Anthony? I'll leave it at that one. I actually threw in your Eric Carlson one, but we'll throw that in for next week. So, because wow. All right, everybody, let's get some Q&A. Oh, wait, hold on. Wait a minute.
That between that and then this one.
I better get her name right. No, I actually pretty much know who the best man would be anyway, so it's all right with that. Yeah, actually, Core, sadly enough, I am in a goal-scoring drought with the K-Stars. Had a goal in the first game, but you know what? I was getting points, and then had an assist in our first game of the spring season. I haven't played since first week of June. So, not June, May. Sorry, June is tomorrow. Wow, June is tomorrow. Can't believe that.
Yeah.
Time just flies.
I've gotta get some stuff done, and I've got to eat and stuff. So,
you know what? I think when we have a note like that, we have got to wrap the show up right there. I was hoping to have some honest press conferences for you guys, but we just kept on talking with Bar Talk. Everybody, make sure that you are checking out the 60-second game reviews, and oh, she'll definitely get a ring before the Rangers, so that'll be a definite thing. So, no, that's if I don't screw it up first. So that's another factor that's in there. Everybody, make sure that you hit the like on us. Great show. Probably this might be our funniest show ever that we've done. Fortunately, that happens with lots of mistakes. Filk, enjoy the rest of your night. Everybody, we are out of here, and enjoy the Stanley Cup Finals starting Saturday night. We'll see you soon.